dip, bap, boop, bip, bap. Hey, what are you doing, kids? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob here on the Bop. And it's sunny Sunday, and I'm in the churchy people wagon. And so, what do you think? Hmm? How was this week? Um, do you like martial law? I mean, I really love me my Donnie Chump. Donnie. All the chuckleheads, Pam Bondi, just woo, just amazing. So if you can't understand that Donnie is just a game show host, that we are just caught in a soap opera that has been going on for the last 16,000 years, you know, well, here we are. And Donnie, he is. I really love me my Donnie Chump because he has given us the opportunity to see that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights aren't even worth the paper they're written on. Never were. Go look at all those George Carlin HBO specials. You're not part of the club, kids. Never were. Right? You're just expendable. And boy, are you ever going to be expendable. It's just going to be, you're going to experience what those kids in the Gaza Strip have been experiencing the last 2 years. You're going to be experiencing what those folks in Ukraine have been experiencing, but to the 10th power. Because Russia was this gigantic, they had 1 million guys on their uniform, more tanks than everyone put together. And little Ukraine, that only had 40-something million people, where Russia had almost 200 million people, right? Where, Russia's land mass is, 100 times bigger than Ukraine, and, and their resources, their oil and you name it, resources are unmarked by almost anybody. Now they're like, ooh, not so much. And the only thing they can do to get back is to throw around a few nukes. Not, Holocaust, end of times nukes, but, take Ukraine, take Kiev out with a nuke, take something in Poland that's strategic out with a nuke, take Brussels out with a nuke, take Paris out with a nuke, and take D.C. out with a nuke. But the D.C. nuke ain't going to be coming from Russia. It's going to be coming from the enemy within. And then, baby, see what happens. Ooh, buddy, right? And the bottom line is the little peace thing that Donnie's going to go and, look what I did. Ooh, ain't I great? I should have gotten a Nobel Peace Prize. Blah, 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 blah. No, that ain't, we've already had 5 or 6, stays of death, but just for a little while, right? Donnie did one in the beginning of his first months, right? And a few trucks got in with food, just enough to stay the never-ending end of the poor folk that are there. And more than a third or a quarter of the people in the Gaza Strip are Christians. They're not Muslims, they're Christians. Lots of Christians in who are Palestinians, right? But I guess they're not right kind of Christians, right? So anyway, how you doing? Let's see. Maybe I can. Yes, I think I can. Let's try to put you right there. Okay, perfect. Let's see. Do I have my glasses? I think I have my glasses. Where did my glasses go? I have my glasses. So we had our lesson in fellowship, and the lesson was about hope, but nobody said that. It's like everything but hope. Right? And what does hope come from? Hope comes from our ability to follow love's co-creation, to be the doula of love's co-creation, right? did with my glasses? That's why I have so many pair that I can't even find. Sorry. I guess I left them on the bench. And that's okay. Somebody else will need them. So, let's see. Nope. I don't really have them, so such is life. Are they in here? Nope. Anyway, what are you guys saying here? Good morning. Kids, if you put the stuff in caps, I can read it. Now let's enjoy a bit of, let's see, okay, so that, anyway, so here we are, and so get ready, and the bottom line, if you're any kind of spiritual human, you talk to God, right? And you talk to God not in a religious kind of way, because religion deals with liturgy. Liturgy deals with the lawyers, You had in Jesus's time in the temple, they had the Pharisees. They were the lawyers, right? That's what Paul was, a lawyer, a Roman lawyer, right? He was a used car salesman, and that's what Christianity became, a used car, because the old car was a mixture of Roman mythology and Jewish theology, right? And that gave us the new Christians, right? Now, there were old Christians, right? Before even Christ showed up, there were all these different sects out there of the Hebrew tribes. And so right now, every 2,000 years, we go through a period of time of, the same old same. Read the Old Testament, wars and famines and you name it, right? Pestilence. And that's just the everyday. And then there's a Jubilee where there is a sense of stability, right? And we kind of had that. It's a 50-year period, and we kind of had that after World War II. And then we get into the 7 years of trial, right? And we're still in Jubilee. We haven't quite hit the trial yet. It's coming. And we had to lead up in the end of the Jubilee. And, that's what's going on now. And it's sad that most people are so distracted by their everyday. What's on TV, what kind of death pill they can take next, They don't, me, I'm sitting out on my front lawn talking to God. My car blew up, about a month ago, more than a month and a week. And so I have no way to go anyway. The only, one reason I come out on the churchy thing is A, to have fellowship and Bible studies, and B, that hour, people get very upset when I'm honest. People, why don't you stay for services? And I say, well, I'd be a hypocrite. What? Yeah, a hypocrite, You guys are Southern Baptist, and not only are you Southern Baptist, you're a church in your own definition, in your mission state for your 501c3 says that your church is different from any other Baptist church. Your liturgy, your understanding of the Bible is focused through the church and not through Jesus or God. And so whenever, and if you had really good, some churches hook the people because they have really good singers, really good band, you're a suck. Meaning they're not inspired by anything, right? It's a miracle that they can even read the book and sing the kind of song, even though it's up on the teleprompter, right? So why would I go to a church like that? Right? Now I love the people, so I'll go for fellowship, Bible studies, right? And then I stick around for about the first 5 minutes as people shuffle in, and I'm there at the front door where the minister should be, but I'm greeting people. God bless you. Praise God, praise Jesus, and bless the other. And people go, other? Who are you talking about? And I said, you're the other. What? So think about that. Pray to God in church. What? And hopefully that would keep them awake rather than half of them falling asleep. So when people go, well, why don't you come to service? Well, watch half the people asleep, watch the other half looking down women's dresses, and listening to a guy speak from a point of view of where he runs his construction company. He always makes motifs towards business. Like it's a business, And so why would I? Because whenever I'm in a sanctified place, I basically talk to God. And the sanctified place is anywhere on God's green earth. That's why I live in the deep green, and I'm blessed the fact that all the roads are destroyed. Yes, it's if I really got into, like yesterday, I couldn't get a cell signal out for anything. And so if anything ever happened to me, that would be it, And now it's getting towards basically winter, and I have no car. And I've asked the last, around the time I was going to get my hip operated, I needed some help. And I asked everyone in the church, hey, I need, is there any announcements? I mean, I waited around till the whole church was full. I said, I really have some trials and tribulations here. I'm going to have my hip operated on, and for 3 days before then, I need to be in a clean place where I can take a shower and use this antimicrobial stuff, because the biggest problem of the operation is infections. And I live out in the woods, and the fact that I don't take a shower ever is a good thing, right? My biome is really strong. I'm like a mushroom. I'm connected to the Earth's dynamic. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and wherever you are, welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. And so I am your griot here to tell you a story, right? And this guy, and don't believe a word I say, right? I have about 20 minutes or so before this bus gets packed up with old farts and they're taken home. I'm one of the old farts, but I'm sitting in the beam of the Wi-Fi. So anyway, because the folks that I can normally walk a mile and a quarter to sit on their deck, they have guests every now and then, and they've got guests there now for the last few days, so that's why I haven't done a show, right? But I sat on the thing talking to God, and God is definitely a happy chappy, right? And the fact that I have basically relinquished all of my wealth to the poor back in 2014, and then live on about $400 a month. I live like a millionaire on $400 a month, right? I get about $800 from Social Security, and $400 kind of straight away goes to like bills, utility, insurance, the phone, healthcare, that kind of stuff. Keeping the car up. But now that I have a car, that expense is going away. Now the fact that I can't go out and spend money, so that $400 was my expendable, so I go to restaurants. So I've lost about 10 pounds this month, and I'm down to my high school weight of 195. Right, so I'm looking pretty good. And when I showed the audience a week or two ago the fact that that was happening, YouTube said that they blocked that show for sexual content. Really? All I did was show them my chest, nothing more. And so, yes, you have to realize that all of our digital platforms, like my phone is passive aggressive because it's designed to be on the internet 24/7. It gets about 12 hours a week on the end. It's like, right? And the fact that I don't give Google money to, I mean, I can only see 30 days of my emails. I mean, if I don't check it out and write it down, it's gone. It's up in the cloud. And they said, just give us $3 a month and you can have blah, blah, blah. Well, after I do that, that won't be enough, right? And every time I use this thing, they're changing some mechanism of it to basically get rid of whatever value this platform had. So, kids, I would say before the new year, this is going bye bye, along with electricity, right? What's going to happen is the United States is going to get somewhere in somehow. I mean, like the Chinese flew a balloon full of all kinds of stuff. I mean, that balloon, the platform it was floating was as big as a school bus, right? And the only reason we left it up there is that it was sucking up data that we were feeding it, and then we were seeing how China was receiving it. I mean, we got more. It's just like us using our smartphones and using Google. And why is Google free? Because Google learns more about us than we learn from Google. So we're really. I love me, my daddy Chuck. I love me, daddy. He's got so many chuckleheads. Everyone in there is a grifter. They're skimming off. Look what Neon Husk did. With Douche. The first 2 months, he just scraped as much data from Social Securities, from the IRS, from every organization that he gutted. He just unplugged AID's servers and took it with him. And he took it down to Memphis, Tennessee, where he turned an Electrolux factory that he bought for nothing into one of the world's largest, AI dens of iniquity. And he's going to use that pushed through his, Twitter X thing. When all the crap hits the fan, he's going to say to everyone on the planet, listen, you lost your internet. Isn't that too bad? But I got this new, fancy, smancy, made in China, much so better, superior to Apple's anything, because Apple hasn't turned out anything. I mean, Steve Jobs was an engineer. He just looked good in black pants, right? And so what are you guys going to do about this? Well, you're going to go out in the street and complain? No. You know what you should do? Don't go to work. Turn off the television. Don't go to any movies. Don't buy anything. Don't get a gun. If the statistics show if you're white and you buy a gun, the odds of that gun being taken from you and then murdering you is the highest way of. White males die from the gun they bought because they don't know how to use it. They were never trained. They just can go and buy whatever. I want an AR. They don't even know how to clean it. So up until Jimmy Carter, it was illegal to have an automatic gun in the United States. All you could have was your shotgun, your 30-06, a 22, and a revolver pistol. No automatic guns, no 45s, no, you might be a soldier and have kept your service revolver, but that's about it. You couldn't go buy one of those things, like an AR. You couldn't buy that at at Walmart. You couldn't buy yourself a Glock at Walmart. Now you can. Thank you, Jimmy Carter. What? What? Jimmy, what? Well, Jimmy Carter cracked the door open. And then, George H. and Ronald Reagan basically opened the door even more. And then good old Bill Clinton, basically got rid of the door, right? Because he got so much money from the gun manufacturers, right? And all that money was laundered through not just the CIAs, but the Khazarian mob. Go look up the Khazarian mob, right? See who they are. See where they went, where they came from, right? And who they were, right? See that story, right? They were the land pirates of the Silk Road. They just wait there and set up their own little caliphate and then take, rape, from the poor people or get money mob. And then the czar came in because they kind of gravitated towards his neighborhood and he stepped on and said, look, not in my neighborhood. And, if you want to do this, you have to pick a religion, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. And so these guys said, who are the most business? Is it the Vatican? Well, they sure are. They own everything. Is it the Muslims? Well, their whole platform is hospitality, so they own the motels. Is it the Hebrews, the Israel? And they bing 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 bing. And why did they pick to be Jewish? Is because A, they had a lot of bling. B, they could kind of blend in because the Jews weren't any real specific characteristic. They didn't have a gene pool kind of characteristics. That's why in Israel today, you can't go get, your gene pool, find out where grandpa came from. They don't want you to know. So anyway, that's the Khazarian mob. They are part of that. And so, and they just showed up, since they showed up, 6th century maybe. But they were, if you go read Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, you'll get a good picture of who the Khazarian mob is, right? And who else? Dickens, Christmas Carol, you'll get a good idea where they came from, right? Good old Mr. Red Flag. Who is Mr. Red Flag? Any of you guys out there know? Can you tell me? And put this stuff in capitals because I can't read it. Now let's enjoy. Let's see. Dreamers. Yep. So I want to help. So you want to help your community, right? So what you should do is you drive around, right? You should, go to the food bank and fill up a garbage bag full of food that they have at the food bank. Drive around, give it to those people who are out there with the side. And usually in those food banks, you can find basically, also you can find hats and gloves. And so the bottom line is fill your car up with that stuff you get at a food bank or your church. And you should, to a church, get your church to serve the poor. Because that's what Jesus Christ said constantly. When the rich guy came, so Jesus, how do I get to heaven? And Jesus said, well, first of all, sell all your wealth, not everything, your wealth, and give it to the poor. Because he said, give to Caesar what's Caesar's and what God is God. Meaning we live in a material world. So you don't give it all away, but you give 99% of it away. Your wealth, that 1% you can live on more than 4 billion people on this planet live on less than $3 a day. If you're making more than $2.75, you're above the poverty line that J.P. Morgan has set out that all governments and well, that guy makes more than $2.75 American. He's not poor. Could you live on that? Ooh, motorcycles. Oh, there go all the dentists. So why is it the motorcycle guys are dentists? What, to buy a new Harley costs $100,000, more than most cars. More than an economy vehicle. I mean, the Teslas, they're trying to get that low end price down to $40,000. Did you ever finish high school. Oh, yes. I have more degrees than a thermometer, right? I am a psycho, social, cultural, forensic anthropologist, and I have paper in all of them, right? I spent 40 years being a itinerant scholar, right? You know, so yes. And I went to the most prestigious prep schools. I went to school, high school, with the wealthiest people on the planet. Perry Dye, Eddie Merrill, Ricky Lynch of Merrill Lynch, right? UB Hobart, the Hobart Banana Slicing Company, and you name it, I went to school with them. Yeah, the Shah of Iran's youngest son, right? Guys, what's his name? Mr. Al Qaeda, his younger cousin. I saw how the elite are, and they're as screwed up as anybody else, more than anybody. There was a friend of mine who was my roommate for a few months until he committed suicide. He would get a check every frigging week for $17,000 from his father, right? Which he hadn't seen in 10 years. And the check wasn't even signed by his dad or his dad's, executive assistant, or that executive assistant's assistant, or that assistant's assistant. It was by the seventh assistant, and it was a auto pen sign, right? He gets 17 grand in the mail every freaking week that he could put into the school bank, and he would just tear it up. And one time I looked in a garbage pail and said, fucking hey. So I said, buddy, Scotch tape this thing back together and sign it over to me. I don't have any money in the school bank. I can't get a cheeseburger. I can't get anything. I was like the homeless guy of our private school because I was put there by a cardinal, right? He had a lot of push. Anyway, so that's what's going on in the world. The same old same. But every now and then it's disrupted. I mean, it's still chaotic. There's something to the order of 830 million people on this planet, 830 million with an M, that are experiencing the kind of death, chaos, starvation, and war that the kids in the Gaza Strip are experiencing. 830. Do you hear anything about Sierra Leone or anything going on in Africa, anything going on in Asia, China, South America? None of the above. Why did all those people wanted to come to America? Was it to get a better job cleaning out a toilet? No. To get away from all the war zones that we created by creating that as a narco village, Central and South America. And why did we give, $20 billion to say goodbye to Argentina? That's where all the Nazis are. That's like the retirement home for the Nazis. And don't believe a word I say. This is just for entertainment's sake. This is like a cartoon. This is like, I can't even say this is like South Park because I ain't as good. South Park is better than any news entity on the planet. You can bank on that. Take that to the bank. Even though there are no banks left, that it's all a make-believe, like your cash don't exist. Your credit card's non-existent. Your face is the only thing. Whenever you go to any kind of bureaucratic thing, we want to take a picture of your face. Why? Because they're building a database on it. So this is your credit card right here, right? And kids, your Sensie Owl Bob here, he's been around a good deal. And so I'm here to tell you stories as a griot. Don't believe a word I say. Go check it out for yourself. Oh, what's the biggest news thing? Well, that big thing, the IEEE rock coming through our solar system. It was doing something on 180,000 miles a minute, and it put on the brakes and went into orbit around Mars. That's like, if it was just a rock zipping through our solar system, that's a physical impossibility. This thing hit the brakes and then went into orbit around Mars. And good old Neon Husk sent one of his dragons up into space to investigate this thing, and it either had a weapon on board or the visitor did it itself. But that satellite that we sent up there, and this sucker's moving real fast. So that was a lot of math to figure out, how to catch up and, go along. Well, anyway, boomo, something happened, and that big rock shook off more than half its net weight in stuff, and basically a vehicle, after that occurrence of Neon Husk intervening, that visitor hit the brakes and went into orbit around Mars. Now, that should be the biggest story in the news. Is it? Not really. We're talking about Pam Bondi and Donnie Chump and all the rest, right? And that's just a soap opera to distract us, and it's just going to get weirder. We're putting military in our cities, and we've got brown shirts and police that aren't police, and they don't have any IDs, and they can just kill you, and there's no repercussion. I mean, that was the police anyway, but you could always sue the municipality and get $100 million and make it expensive for them to kill your brother or your kid or your son or your husband or your grandpa or your mom or your niece. And it wasn't just black people or people of color getting whacked. In actuality, there are more white folk getting whacked because they're more stupid. They are like entitled, so they go in, do something stupid, and think that no, they're as much a N-word as anybody else, right? So, and there are all these guys on the internet and YouTube and all of that. We're going on and on and on. There's this blondie, white-haired guy who sometimes wears a suit, and when he's like on his set with the books in the back, and I like that guy. He really has that theatrical passion of, and he does give the 411 of all the crap that Donnie and his chuckleheads are doing, which is good, And, good old MSNBC does a similar thing, but not as much or as good. And, it is what it is. And so, we're at 9 folk and 12 thumbs up. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. We're in the show for about 30 minutes, give or take. It's about, the crowd should be shuffling out soon. But anyway, and if you guys, did you, yes, a high school thing, yeah, more degrees than a thermometer. I knew you can fit in I can't read that word. Just dirty, okay. You also like Santa. I am Santa's younger brother, Bob Claus. I run the naughty and nice list. That's why I know what's going on, because I run the naughty and nice list. I know who's naughty, I know who's nice. I know who's on the take. Do you? Tool. Okay. Do you still in the I don't even know what that means, so I'll just skip right over that. But I am a dog boy. I love dogs. And I'm really sad to watch people around where I'm at. All the roads are destroyed, so there aren't that many people. So people come up the death road and throw their pets out the window. Cats and dogs and feral gerbils. And they're all over the place, right? And because there's nothing to eat in my neighborhood, because I'm not eating anything, I don't have any garbage, they go on to where the rich people are. That's where a lot of garbage is. And the rich people are really upset because the bears are coming out wanting to fatten up before it really gets cold, and so they're going to hit the rich people. So the rich people have been toting their big guns, their ARs, and shooting each other by mistake. I mean, I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyway, let's see. You're saying all the wrong things for the right reasons. Well, isn't that good enough? My eyebrow? Oh, the nun eye sees all. It's the all-seeing nun eye, the eye of Santa's younger brother of the naughty and nice list. The nun eye sees it all. I see it all. The nun eye sees it all. Yep, there you go. I can't read that. Come on, guys. Fuck. um, Sassy Sasquatch. Yep. Only the trolls are smart enough to put things in capitals. I love you guys. Did I say that it wasn't legal to have one of those? I just said that it was illegal all through America's history up until Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter cracked the door for us to have ARs, right? And get Glocks and all the above, right? So, and I forgive you, you know, you know, Lord, they have no idea. Forgive them, for they have no idea. Doesn't mean people don't have. You guys, really, you can get an automatic weapon easier than a blood transfusion, right? You're dying you need an organ. But hey, we can't give you a liver, but how about a 50 caliber machine gun? You can go out in style, and bolt it on your pickup truck and drive into whatever you want to. Yes, there are all these people who are being. Oh well, I love you all. Love you all. Boop 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 boop. Have you lived in? Well, I've had the deep green for 28 years now, and the first 20 or so years, I had other places. I had a really nice house in Stuart, Florida, right on the Intercoastal. It was owned by really famous silent film. That was where all the movie people hung out, Stuart. That's where all the rich people hung out. And, Palm Beach is just 2 towns south of Stuart. Stuart was where all the power in Florida, and still is, still has a lot of power there. And on the Intercoastal, because of the shit factory and the pig excrement and the chicken farms, the Intercoastal is just one big, tidal toxic bloom. Used to be beautiful. Used to in there. You could go clamming in there. You could go, for oysters and those other little things I like a lot. Anyway, all of that's dead. But this beautiful house that had its own marina and everything, and nobody wanted it because one of the sewer lines cracked, and the whole place smelled like crap. Right. My buddy, who was one of those desperate lawyers, but not, meaning he lived within his means and basically invested in things that money. And so I said, look at this place. He goes, it smells like crap. But hey, I said, look at it. We went in and it was like southern, big porch all around. On second floor, another porch all up here. It had like 12 acres in downtown Stuart. on this peninsula into the, and it open thing out to the ocean. That's the marina. You could have a gigantic boat, and that's what it was. These people had their big yachts. I mean, that they could go to Europe with, right? So anyway, we bought that for $30-something thousand, and I found a guy in the parking lot of Lowe's. We'll work for food. And I said, hey, do you have any experience with sewers? Oh, yes, I dig ditches. I said, okay, follow me. And so he did. I said, so what's going on here? And he's got this sharp, pointy thing and a little sledgehammer. And he starts doing this, and he goes, right here, the main sewer line is cracked and broken, and it's feeding out through your property into the intercoastal. And all we have to do is dig this up and put a chunk of pipe there to connect it to the other chunk over there that's kind of working, and it'll go away. I said, great. And so, I said, in about a month, I want you to fix this. Like, put that on your calendar, and here's $100 for your time. He goes, wow. I said, I got a lot of work for you. Wow. I said, get your crew together. Wow. So I went to my lawyer friend and said, exactly. And he said, no problem. So he nonchalantly went and bid on the county tax roll on that sucker. And we got it for, like less than 40 grand. All the title and everything was, spanking new. Basically, I had that fixed. And then I had the guy go through the whole place and just scrub it up and take out what was bad and put in what was new. And it was like amazing. We had tennis courts, we had a pool, we had a yacht club. And my friend, basically, it was our place in Stewart. I mean, it had 15,000 square feet. You couldn't beat it. Right. Boop, 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 boop. Anyway, the crowd is coming out now. So, anyway, that was just one place I lived. And then I got myself a nice fishing camp out on the Florida Keys on mile marker 40-something. Praise God, praise Jesus, everybody.
God bless.
Yeah, baby. Anyway, I'm going to go away, and I love you guys. You stay solid, and hope you enjoyed this show, and think about God's love for you, right? Talk to God. In the Bible it says, God helps those who help themselves. And what is that help? You have to ask God for that help. You can't just say, oh, I want this, I want that. No. There's a great book called A Course in Miracles. Go get that at your used bookstore. Right. Another one, Bloom's Rune book. Right? So, okay. Talk to you guys later.